So, with that, bom, com isso a gente vai abrir o painel. Vou pedir para os demais panelistas se juntarem a nós. Tenham já a imagem com as fotos? Eles sentarem? Perfeito, obrigado. Então, Elsa já está conosco. Gostaria de chamar também a Jennifer Blaine, Chief Technology Officer na ArcelorMittal. Luiz Dutra, diretor de melhoria e transformação na Alcoa. E Darren Burrows, Head of Customer Engineering na Fleet Space Technologies. E eu sou Bruno Pimentel, sou Head de Inovação na Samarco. Um minuto. Good. Como nós temos a maioria English speakers, we'll switch to English from now on. Okay? Good. So, after two very nice framing discussions, very provocative insights, the main question that we return here is, what should we do about that? Where should mining companies, mine technology providers bet in terms of applied research, advanced research, deep techs, in order to, I don't know, guess what will be the main value streams for the next 10 to 20 years, right? And we have a three-part discussion here. The first one, I would like to open with Jennifer. Is this current model of development and acquiring technology and incrementally improving performance, is it running out of steam? When we think about the technology S-curve, which is a model that I really enjoy talking about, but are we reaching the point where the current technology that we are seeing will not be able to take us to the next level?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for the invite. I'm so sorry, I don't know any other word than Aplicada. Next time, I'll come back with a few sentences. Thank you for the invitation. So I think it's a great question, and when I think about, let's say, my career and my colleagues, most of our careers being, I would say, continuous improvement. So we've been trying to save some pennies to stay competitive. I think we need to change a bit the speed and the way we're doing things. Not so long ago, I was looking at some videos of mines in the 60s and 70s. It was very similar to what we're doing today. Not much change. Okay, bigger mining equipment, bigger roads, bigger volume, but very similar. So I just want to echo what Karen and Elsa have presented earlier. I think we need to mine differently to change how we're doing things. It can be through bioleaching, for instance, which was discussed a bit earlier, but we need a shift. We need a shift to stay competitive. Our ore deposits are getting poorer, they're deeper. It's really a challenge, and it was super interesting for me to see the number of new mines opening that is actually decreasing, and it's not a surprise. It's tough, and the ore is getting really tough to extract from an economical point of view. So I do think that we need that step change, that new way of mining without dilution, without disruption of our communities. A few examples would be, for instance, autonomous hauling, for instance, where we can ensure the security of all our people. So we need those step change in the future, in my opinion.
Thank you, Jennifer. I will follow up with you, Darren, coming from also an industry which is, I mean, we talked a lot yesterday on the cocktail and before in our meetings. You guys come also from a neighboring in the industry, oil and gas, which can also apply the technologies that you work with. But it seems that you guys are on the frontiers of something very, very new. Can you just bring back some of the insights and complement what Jennifer just commented before.
Absolutely, and thank you to Mining Hub for inviting us here, and Bruno, thank you for a good session. Elsie, you really did a good job framing what we want to try to achieve as an industry, and I think I want to use an analogy of Formula One racing, and that should resonate with the Brazilian audience. Ayrton Senna is the greatest race car driver of all time, and so when a Formula One race team tries to develop a racing car, there are lots of very specialized teams that have to work together to make something that's going to win races and work as a whole. And they all go off and they do research and they collect data and they run their simulations. And they're, if you think about this 50 years ago, it was a mechanic with a wrench. And now it's sensors and simulations and aerodynamic modeling, and it's really high-tech sort of stuff. And then when they race the car, they've got more sensors, they collect more data, they update their models in real time, right? Or to try and win races. And if as a mining company, we try and run our mining projects like a Formula One race team, and we have more sensors, more computing, more models, predictive probabilistic inversions, we really try and collect as much data up front, and while we're doing the operations, we're still collecting data and we're updating those models in real time. As Karin from Google was showing you, there's an AI that's listening to you and it's able to adapt. Are we adaptable as an industry? Are we as agile as we need to be? I think the answer is we can do better, right? And so I think that's a good analogy of ideally where the future of mining needs to be. And I heard this morning many people say we want to try and make mining sexy. Formula One's pretty sexy, right? We want to attract talent. We want to bring people to something that is sexy, that is the frontier of research and development. We're a bit risk averse. How do we remove that risk with and still have some capital efficiency is really, I guess, what we want to try explore here.
Excellent, thank you. Now, Luis, coming also from the industry, right? We are all in commodity-based discussions, and we are all about efficiency, capital efficiency, OPEX efficiency, and so on. In your opinion, what needs to change in our companies for the investment in advanced research and applied research to be seen as a structural lever rather than only a sunk cost?
Yeah, first of all, thanks, Bruno, for the invitation. Thanks for being here. I had everything prepared in Portuguese, and I had to switch to English, but that's fine.
Sorry
I use
about
generative AI, no worries.
Same for me.
But yeah. But thanks for the question. And I think that's a really good question, because what happens if you go to the academy, for example, MIT, everything that they are doing, if you consider the technology readiness level, usually academy works between 1 to 4. And the mining industry like ours like to be on the technology readiness level from 6 to 9 to innovate. So there's a gap in between those two layers that we need to bridge. And it's only when we are able to bridge these gaps that we can reinvent the industry. Just to give a quick example for you. So I'm now working in the aluminum industry. The aluminum electrolysis process was invented in 1886. Aluminum back in time was a critical mineral. It was more expensive than gold. And nowadays, everybody uses aluminum. It's in a day-to-day life for everybody. And the way that we produce aluminum has not changed since then. Of course, there are some technologies that came in to improve efficiency, to improve productivity, so on and so forth. But that's not what's going to change the game. And when you think about what we did a couple of years ago in terms of partnering with a competitor, so Alcoa partnered with Rio Tinto. Apple is an investor on that partnership because they want to reduce their Scope 3 CO2 emissions. And the government of Quebec as well is a partner on that one. And then it was created a company that was called Elysis. It's still a company that's trying to produce and to make scalable inert electrodes in the electrolysis process that instead of emitting CO2, it's going to emit oxygen. And then the carbon footprint is going to reduce significantly. Of course, there are major challenges there, but that's only when you are able, again, to the first question, to bridge what the academy wants in terms of technology readiness level, to find new discover, and what the mining wants in terms of find a new way of bringing productivity, bringing savings to the organization. And we partner with the whole value chain and the whole stakeholders that we can make the difference. So that might be a new breakthrough that's going to happen, but let's wait to see, and hopefully we won't wait another 100 years. So thank you.
Excellent, thank you. It's interesting when you mentioned bridging the gap, because we need to have both parties bridging that same gap, right? We have to meet in the middle in terms of allowing the industry to be more open to this kind of investments, and having universities and research centers better at targeting challenges that are not actually so clear for everyone, right? We had this discussion yesterday, and I would like just maybe Jennifer and Darren, do you guys think there is a kind of a misalignment between the pace of the scientific progress, either in small technology provider companies or academia, and the capability of the industry to actually absorb it?
I can go first.
That's good, then I can.
I was not there yesterday at the evening, so let's see how it goes. I do think there is a misalignment, definitely, and I think the challenge, you did talk about we're risk adverse, that's so true, and we need to produce volume, at low cost. Integrating new technology that are not mature is scary. Yeah? So I think our capacity to absorb those technologies, it's much slower than the capacity to develop those. So for me, the challenge is to get from those pilot stage to integrate the operation, so it's easy for the workers and all the, I would say, the community to integrate those new technologies. So again, a lot of help from the R&D department, but also from our management to be a bit less risk adverse and not be scared to try. But again, those technologies that we'll see the day are the one that will be competitive and cost effective at large scale.
Excellent.
And exactly right. I mean, so that gap between a test or a trial or a POC and large-scale development is really, I think that's the real gap we have to try and close. And often I think that's because the structure of mining companies and the risk aversion, it means we're not doing incremental things anymore, where, let's say we're providing a data set that allows you to make a decision far quicker for some capital investment, but we're giving you that data next week, but you're only having a board meeting in 6 months' time, or a team is only having a discussion to make that capital allocation in 6 months' time. So that isn't material to you because your structure hasn't been changed to accept that new paradigm. And often, I think that's the problem. They go, oh, this is really good, but we can't use it. So you let it go. And meanwhile, you're like, well, you should have changed your structure to take advantage of this technology. And us as technology providers, we've got to be better at showing that return on investment, right? You're only going to change your structure of your company, your decision making, if there's now a return on that, if you see it's reduced some uncertainty or it's done something material for your business. And so companies have to change a little bit, but technology providers have to be far more aware of that ROI balance that companies are looking for.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, sure.
I mean, one theme from this morning and also some discussions yesterday is that a lot of what we want to try to be working on is mindset and is systems, right? Which I think, whether or not it's TRL 1 through 3 or 5 through 7, or whether or not we're able to do technology integration at the pace we should, there, this sort of collective opportunity to understand what it is to have the mindset to enable that change feels like good practice to begin in regular ways, and that's why I was very interested in the dialogue at the beginning of the day, and also just the principle of the Mining Hub around cooperation and what does it really mean to do that. And there was a comment in the panel this morning about, a company like Vale works at the vast scales, starts to think about what it is to make value from rare earths. I mean, maybe that's a mini version of that, starts to kind of understand what it is to sort of change structure within the vast thing. So finding ways to practice maybe is something we can continue to talk about.
Excellent. And I'll keep with you,
Sure.
Okay? In that sense, in your opinion, which would be the 2-3 technologies that you guys are looking at that really have the potential to redefine mining over the next, let's say, 10 years?
I mean, sort of picking winners is always tricky, right? But I think, I've thought about this really hard in a little bit what I just said around it is about changing the mine. Even if we had the technology that could redefine mining, it's difficult to interrupt operational processes. And so how do you really do that? So I do think it is the game changer is around our ability to think and innovate in systems. Can we work on technologies that helps us be much more selective and precise in what we're extracting while we're thinking about what does that mean for process flow sheets, while we're incorporating the right types of analytics and real-time information in that. So that's not a selection of a technology, that's what's the technology system that's gonna let us think about transformation. And I'll give one super tiny example of the way we're trying to think about that right now on campus. Even something as, banal at face value as comminution, our research communities, in the academy, those who think about comminution are the mechanical, those who think in mechanical ways about dissipating energy. Those disciplines think very differently than those thinking about separations, dissolution, and they assume that there are fixed surfaces. Well, what if those communities are brainstorming together about what it is to think about low energy comminution, given the fact that we want to be selectively dissolving? So that's a mini example of a scientific approach that could lead to something that's transformative.
Excellent, thank you. Darren, yeah, please.
Yeah, so along that same theme, but I think kind of stepping back and looking at a bigger picture, how often do some of those separate parts of the value chain in the mining life cycle, the data starts and stops within a certain section of the value chain? Exploration data from a greenfield scenario doesn't make it to feasibility. Feasibility information doesn't make it to mine planning and design. The geometallurgists are lucky if they get some understanding of what the minerals that they actually have to process to get the metals out look like. And so you get these walls between these silos, and Elsa mentioned it initially. If we can really understand the power of that data moving through the whole life cycle and collect data at the appropriate times. And when are the appropriate times? We probably need some analytics to figure that out, but probably far earlier than when we do collect data at the moment. To design a better mine, you really need to know what that ore body looks like before you put the first shovel in the ground. But we don't, right? We don't know what that ore body looks like. We don't know what the mineralogy of it is. Like, ideally, we need to know these things far earlier, and then we can make the rest of the life cycle far more efficient. And so, we've talked about robotics and various processing technologies. It's a little bit incremental. Like, if we can really fully understand the subsurface and the things that are going to make a difference in 10 years' time, now we can allocate that capital properly. But it means sharing data along the entire value chain, which we don't do.
Excellent. So you have a potential that is still untapped for that. Great. Jennifer.
Yes, maybe another element. And it echoes to discussion that there were this morning about permitting. So a lot of our mine actually were generating much more tailings than actually product. So we can talk about tailing mines, right? So all the new technology about circular economy, how can we generate less? How can we extract more? I think those definitely are technology that need to be pushed and investigated. It's much more difficult to get permits nowadays. I think here in Brazil it is the case. In other countries like Mexico, it's almost impossible to have permits today. So the less disruptive technology, again, same with exploration. Can we think of a day where we don't do any drill holes to get accuracy of the deposit? So less footprint, better, I would say, a life for our community and surrounding. The watering technologies, here in this country that we're really strong in filter tailing. There's still a lot of development to be done in filter tailing. So all those, I think, are definitely future technologies that needs to be dig and worked on.
Excellent. Luis, picking up from this probably emerging technologies, there are so many things going on, so many options, and it's hard to keep track. You used an expression yesterday that I really like. The space is kind of crowded, right? But in your opinion, what turns a promising technology into a real, actual competitive advantage? What makes it happen?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. First, for me, there's no one technology. What we are living in to be successful and to really create a competitive advantage, what we have to work is a convergence of technology that's out there. And one thing that's, for me, it's quite important as well, we need to understand the economics behind, of course. If there's no business case, there's no innovation that's going to solve the use of the mining industry. And one of the things that I feel like is quite important to think about in 10 years, 20 years' time when you think about mining, the mining industry, and that's a question, are we designing and building minings considering the convergence of all those technologies, or are we just building mines the way that we always built, considering, of course, autonomous mining here, intelligence center, monitor center here, some advanced process control there, but not really turning the dial to what we need to see in 10 to 20 years' time. And I feel like only the moment that we start to design mining, build mining in a way that we consider the ore body like data systems, we consider processes adaptive, if you consider assets intelligent, and we design the way that you think about decision-making in a way that's probabilistic and based on risks, that we're going to really nail the future in the mining industry. So that's the whole picture that I foresee in 10 to 20 years' time. Yeah.
Excellent. And still you.
Yep.
Suppose you identify one of those and you, let's say you want to take a risk and make an investment. Which would be, let's say, the success criteria that you would focus on in order to make the next step, to take the next step for the next range of investments and so on?
I think when we think about innovation, technology, and so on, to pick up one that's going to be successful, we need to have a rigor and we need to have discipline. So ultimately, it's all about make sure that we have the speed required, make sure that we have the resilience required, and then make sure that we have the consistency required to make that technology, that innovation successful or not, and then moving on. And knowing that's a learning journey, and as the organization goes into that process, we're going to build as well a learning organization. And that's what we want to promote and to foster an innovative workforce across the organization. Yeah.
We heard the term yesterday also about the patient capital, right? And we know that innovation is not an efficient process. So at some point, capital need also to be kind of patient. But of course, we need to think about the success criteria, what we need to achieve in steps and keep the flow of investments going, and maybe make tough decisions in discontinuing some projects and fostering other ones. And it's all about what you said, for sure. You want to make some comments, sir?
Well, just pulling from something we were talking about earlier in terms of technology readiness and how do you engage universities or research institutions, I think this success criteria is a useful place to have dialogue, right? And I think that the way that those research that's successful on campus think very early on about what those success criteria are and how you can teach students to be framing the experiments they're doing in the context of those, but we have to make sure we understand them at a level of depth. So I really like what you were saying about this sort of learning, and can we take that learning and success criteria and kind of port it upstream in the readiness department, which I think may help with some of those, because it's a useful thing to have a dialogue around, right?
Excellent. change a little bit the direction here and coming into a more systems perspective, as we like to do, right? I would like for us to discuss what needs to change in this mine ecosystem, and we are all actors in this ecosystem, right? Each playing a specific role for these good opportunities that start showing up in applied and advanced research to translate into real transformation for the mining industry. Who wants to take the first shot here? Cold call, Elsa, please. Yeah, Darren, yeah, please, yeah.
I mean, something we spoke about when we were preparing for this was and we mentioned it before now with young professionals, at the top of their list, I don't want to join the mining industry, right? Oil and gas comes second. Financial services, people are happy to join the financial services. People will join the insurance industry and the banking industry to, steal cents on our dollar, right? But if you think about what the insurance industry does, it's not all that different to what mining companies do. It's all about categorizing or collecting data, categorizing risk, lowering your uncertainties, and then pegging, the value of things so you can understand what people are going to pay. But young people that are solving computational and statistical problems, rather want to do that in the financial industry than the mining industry. And so what needs to change is we have a branding problem. We do cool things. We move tons of rock. We blow things up. We go deep underground. We produce things that are critical for humankind, and yet we have this PR problem. So I think as an industry, we need to change the PR landscape a little bit. We need to attract new industries into mining, and you get companies like Cobalt who have got interesting funding sources, and so we're bringing new sources of capital in, which is good. But we're slowly getting new industries involved in mining. But I think the faster that can happen, and the more pace that can happen at, I think we'll see more mining companies, being filled up with different sorts of people who come from a technology-first background, not legacy people, and that who aren't scared to think outside the box, because it's not actually outside the box for them, right? So it's as the industry changes, and if we can change the pace of that change, I think we'll see we do become closer to the forefront of research, and we will then naturally kind of solve our PR problem. But we still really have a PR problem.
Thank you. Jennifer? Or Elsa?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I agree with you completely, but if we think about it a little bit in reverse, let's assume we have changed the PR problem. Let's assume these folks are excited. I mean, I gave you 2 examples of 2 students who are ready. And so it's like, if they show up, what are we showing up with? Which I think is, so if you can sort of picture the party, what do we want to have out there? Or your Formula One race, like what car do we want to bring out when they show up at the door? That's maybe a creative way to think about it. That's not, quite as, like, how do we change our image? Like, let's assume this is the moment. What do we do with it?
Yeah, that's a good point. Jennifer, what's your perspective on how best to prepare our mining companies for being able to exploit the value that is coming from all those opportunities?
Sorry, can you repeat? I didn't understand.
Sorry about that. Your perspective on how can we better prepare our companies to be able to exploit and really create value from what is coming from deep tech and academia and other sources.
No, definitely. I think we do need to be much more open to the world in general, to partnership with your university, to do benchmark, to travel. 30 years ago, people were not traveling, especially on the mine side, super isolated. I was speaking, I lived 15 years on 2,000 people city in northern Quebec. Okay, you don't learn much from the outside when you're there. So I think we need to promote this exchange. We need to promote different profile as well. So not just the typical geologist. I'm geologist, okay? Nothing wrong about that. But different profile. And we definitely need to see our mines at big playground. And that's always how I saw that. By the way, I love to blow rock. I always thought it was fun. Maybe not for everyone. But definitely we need to find a way to to exchange, to learn from the other, and to try. Even if it's in small queries, sometimes I'm thinking about university or they have small pit queries where you can actually try. And I think that's where we need to be. So we need concrete action, but we need to exchange and strengthen the network.
Excellent. There was a topic that is always present, which is AI, right? And I was trying to avoid this question, but it seems unavoidable at this point. Maybe for all of you guys, what you guys perceive as good use cases that probably not to incrementally improve what we are already doing, right? Just do more with less and so on, but things that could really change the game based on the potential of the technologies that, for instance, Karen showed before, or based on your own experience.
Maybe I can start. I think one of the impressive thing about AI is it's accessible to everyone. And that's a big step change. So we have data now. We have so much data, we don't know what to do with it. And the people that will sort this out quickly with AI are the winners. So I'm just thinking, in my team, small team, 15 people, there is not a week that somebody hasn't developed something with AI. So, for instance, I have a mind planner that told me, I was done with, I'm not going to mention the name of that super expensive software. Optimization was too long. I just asked AI to develop something else. He doesn't need to use that software anymore. What he developed is much faster. It's not his background. I have so many examples. Another example of we were doing a fleet dimensioning, very typical, with Excel files, cycle times. And at some point, we had results, and my employee told me, no, I've put it in AI, it simulated the traffic. Usually, you would need to buy those software to simulate the traffic to be much more accurate. But it took a few hours, and he had his simulation model that is applicable to all the mines. So I think it's not just the single thing that AI will do differently, it's how everybody, with just a bit of training, can use AI for their day-to-day job. I think that's a major game changer.
Excellent.
And if I may, I completely agree. And if I may add on that, I mean, you all know that AI has been there for quite a while, for decades and so on. And I'm an automation engineer by formation, and I remember studying neural networks, all the machine learning, algorithms, and so on. And I said to myself, that's never going to work. It's going to be impossible. And I think, of course, all the speed, data processing that came along with everything that we know on the evolution of this initial automation process control that evolved in the industry 4.0, that evolved in transformation, that evolved into what we now call AI. I think the moment that we are living in that's kind of the major shift is because AI now is user-friendly. It was not user-friendly back in time. Sometimes to build a model, it was an incredible effort. And to run the model, I remember from the university, it was about 5 hours when I click enter, 5 hours to get the result. And that's now it's, really quick to have that, and it's user-friendly. If you consider nowadays in Brazil as general, as you know, Brazil is connected. Almost 9% of people has internet connection, more of the 80% has already a social network, and about 30%, 32% of the people uses AI in some form or shape. It's not as in the other countries that are already with the 60% use of some sort of AI, and in the industry as well, but the pace that we see here in Brazil, it's incredibly. And I feel like we need to kind of gather this opportunity, make something really real, and continue with this simplicity and make sure that's user-friendly so that we can scale that in the most effective way. Yeah.
Thank you, Darren.
Sure, and I'm going to look at this from a different aspect now, because once we have a mine and we've mined some rock and we have processing plants and we have robots underground, etc., we have a lot of data. We can train AI models. We can get good. There's a lot of training, and so those AI models are good and they make a difference to our lives. But my job is before we have a mine. And there's been a lot of experiments run with geospatial, sparse exploration data and AI, and that's hard. We don't have the training data. You can even have drilled out your deposit at 150 meter spacing for your resource model. Think about how little volume of rock you've actually sampled, right? And now you're building mines and making decisions on really not enough data. And so looking at it from before the mine gets built, there are some really hard problems to solve in low resolution data, AI, and still trying to create predictive models on what the mineralogy looks like. And I think if we can crack that side of it, if we can work better on the predictive capabilities of geophysical data, geological data, and we're starting to get more data sources. There's a lot more drill core scanning companies out there, so we're getting a little bit more data density, and the industry is changing there. But I think that's really where it's sort of the cutting edge of AI and mining is if we can crack that, if we can get some level of accuracy or uncertainty reduction using sparse data, that really is a game changer. But it's very hard. It's very hard to do consistently, and it's very hard to do accurately all the time. So, that's part of it. Stanford has a research unit with Mineral X, busy looking at that. And so there are some industry and academic partnerships, and obviously mining companies like Cobalt are, putting that into practice and putting their drilling money where their technology is to try and, prove up those kind of new ways of using AI.
Excellent. So in a sense, as we democratize the use of it, as you said, Jennifer, and are able to, let's say, gather more data and combining that data in different ways from before, maybe we get to the point of what Luis mentioned, that we would be able to ask new questions. Right? Think of new ways of designing our operations, designing the way that the mine companies work, the way that the sector ultimately works. Thank you so much for that. Last round of questions, very brief messages. I'll leave you guys with this. If you had to briefly summarize, in your opinion, what will differentiate the leaders, the leading mine companies, the leading technology providers, the leading universities, what will differentiate them in this new landscape? Is it scale? Is it being more cost effective? Is it investing heavily on new assets? Or is it culture? I don't know, in your opinion.
I mean, I said this in my piece at the beginning, but I really do think there's an opportunity to assert and go out there and say mining is the most technologically sophisticated industry, and given the link to the physical world, is the greatest opportunity for impact. So our ability to kind of realize that, I think, is going to be pretty differentiating.
Thank you.
Yeah. For me, I think the differentiation is going to come when we do not innovate only the operating model, the way that we do mining, but also the way that we innovate the business model of the organization. So when we're able to do both, the operating model and the business model, innovate both simultaneously, that's going to create a competitive advantage.
Last year at the PDAC, our CEO gave a talk at the PDAC, and her message to the mining leaders in the audience was that if you don't sort out your data and understand what data is valuable, what data is not valuable, and figure out how to make decisions on that data quickly, you're not going to own your companies much longer. Google and Amazon and Meta are going to own your companies. So as an industry, if we can't figure out our data, the people who can figure out our data are going to take over.
Great point, yeah. Jennifer?
No, I think pretty much everything was already said. I think it's about the strategic vision. You were talking, Luis, about where we want to be in 20 years, 30 years from now. So we have, as leader, executive, stop to live for the next quarter. We have to see longer term. Same with our R&D team. We need to let them focus else than just the current support they can give us, our team. Let's go with the long shots. Let's promote the development and the innovation in our team. Have different KPIs to encourage our team to develop and to innovate.
That's music for all of our ears. Thank you guys so much for this. With that, we end our panel. Thank for the audience. Very productive discussion, very good insights. And I'll hand over the floor to my colleague Leandro, who will keep discussing how do we scale all these nice ideas up to the value capture. Thank you guys so much.